If I had to give some advice to kids that are trying to decide what to do after high school, my advice would be to take some time to think about it. There are a lot of options out there. There's school, there's study abroad programs, jumping right into the workforce. There's a lot of opportunities there.
The longer I've been in my career, the more I've realized it was important to, it's important to be doing something that you love and something that you really have an interest in. So really look through those options, make sure that you're not going to the school because they have an amazing football team or an amazing basketball team. It's really, that is the best education you can get for your money and going to set you up for, the future that you want to have doing the things that you love.
To find your best fit. I think that's the most important part about finding a college, is finding somewhere that fits you and that you know you fit there. Keep your options open, visit a lot of different sizes of institutions, whether it's a small private school or a large public school, a community college. You never know how it's going to feel until you get on that campus.
When it comes to students that don't know what they necessarily want to study, that's a really hard question to be able to talk to students about. And I think the number one thing there is, what are the interests? What's the interest in that? And I think that's what we start to talk to students about before that, is what interests you? Maybe they don't know what the major is, but what interests you? And then make sure that the college that they're thinking about going to has some of those interests.
It's not a problem not to know what you want to major in. Lots of jobs out there that people don't know about until they get into college. So when should students start applying to colleges? Most colleges open their applications August 1st. Not everybody wants to apply then because they don't know for sure what schools they want to go to. So August 1st, if you know that you definitely want a particular school, go ahead and apply. Get the applications in. What's most important is to know the deadline dates. If you want early action, early decision, or general. Colleges often give out more scholarships or have the funds available earlier. Also, by knowing those dates, you will be able to work with your counselors, work with the teachers who will be your college your references, writing recommendations. Have a good plan.
Application processes when they're due and when that is, depending on the colleges themselves. A lot of those is different. Typically around November 1st is kind of that deadline period for most colleges. But obviously, depending on, certain colleges have certain deadlines, and so they really have to be able to understand what that college wants. But typically November 1st is that deadline.
Some schools will not accept an application after February 27th. So knowing when to apply, have a calendar with all those dates on it, so you're really always knowing what is going on in your own application process. How many schools should a student apply to? I always feel it's important to apply to at least 3. You should have your choices narrowed down to 5 or 6. Some students want to apply to as many schools so they can see what they get accepted to. That's fine, but that's also very costly. Most schools have a fee. More and more schools are waiving a fee if you do it online. Some schools will have a special fee waiver during College Go Week. For example, Indiana State waives fees the month of September. So 3 is important. You'll have one school that this is your number 1 choice. Sometimes you have a safety school. I don't know if I'll get into my first choice, so I'm going to apply to 2 others that I know I can get into. Or you might have 2 schools that I love them both. I love everything about them. Whichever one I get into is where I have to then decide.
As an admission counselor, what I like to see in a college application is anything that makes you stand out. So, of course, you're going to have that list of activities and the classes you've taken and your GPA. All of that stuff is great to see on an application, but what I love is anything that jumps off the page. So I would encourage students to take that essay space to talk about something that makes you unique. So if you went through a really difficult time, go ahead and tell me about that, but tell me the lessons you learned from that. And not only what you learned from that, but how those lessons are going to affect your college experience. Because again, looking at what you're going to do on campus as a student, that's really important to me as an admission counselor. That's going to help me see, not only are we going to be able to help you in your long-term goals and your career aspirations, but you're going to be able to give back to our campus community as well. As an admission counselor, what I don't like to see on a college application is a lack of effort. It's very clear to see that you wrote that essay in about 10 minutes and you didn't proofread it. Take that extra step, take that initiative to go through your application from beginning to end and make sure it says what you want it to say and represents who you are as an applicant. When I'm looking at academic ability versus community involvement, I think it first depends on the kind of institution you're applying to. A lot of larger institutions are looking at that academic ability. They're not looking holistically. At a smaller school like Hanover, we are looking at the application as a whole. So I would say tailor your application to the kind of institution that you're applying for. Specifically for a smaller institution, which is again what I represent, when I'm looking at the two, I look for probably more of the academic ability side, but I don't know that I define academic ability in the traditional sense, because I would rather see the effort to take those advanced classes as opposed to that 4.0 GPA. I would much rather see a 3.5 with the attempt to take those AP classes or dual credit classes than a 4.0 in all regular classes. Because to me that shows that you're preparing yourself for the rigor of a Hanover or of an IU, whatever school that you're going to be applying to.
The difference between the SAT and ACT, all colleges are going to take those scores from the SAT or ACT, but the biggest difference really is the ACT has a little bit more science and math to it than the SAT. The SAT, is really kind of well known here in Indiana. That's what a lot of, but the ACT, if you're really interested in math, really like science, that's really a test to be able to take. SATs and ACTs and how many times they should take it and those types of is depending on the student, but typically we always like to say at least by the time the beginning of their junior year they really need to take it at least then. Sometimes students will take it at the beginning or at the end of their sophomore year, but really at the beginning of their junior year, and then again at the end of their junior year, depending on the score that they got on that test. If they take the SAT or ACT, do really well on it, they might only have to take it once, but it gives them an opportunity to take it at the beginning of their junior year to be able to take it 3 times before they apply to college. I think college visits are really important for students. I think getting the opportunity to go on a college campus, being able to see how those colleges are run in different colleges. If you go to a Purdue campus or an IU campus where it's a really big campus, that's a totally different aspect than it is if you're going to DePaul or Rose-Hulman, which is a smaller campus. And I think for a student to be able to get that feel of how a college campus is and how it's structured for them, and getting a familiarity of just being on a college campus is really important to them in that process of going through how to figure out which college they want to go to.
Getting onto that campus just really shows you how you're going to feel there, how the people are, really get a feel of that atmosphere. So that's when you find out where you truly see yourself going.
It's a good idea to visit large schools, small school, medium size. It's important because you need to find the school that you're going to have a good fit with. Very important.
I would say apply to any and all scholarships possible. A lot of students make the mistake of applying to the really big ones, thinking I have to get this $20,000 scholarship. A lot of the smaller ones go unawarded a lot of times, so students are applying for those. So anytime that you can go for that $500 one or that $1,000 one, take that chance, because those can add up a lot more quickly, and especially because those aren't applied for all the time.
If I wasn't privileged enough to have the scholarship to pay for everything to go to Rose-Hulman, I probably would have looked at the community college approach for the first couple years, get those basic classes that are going to translate into anything else that I was going to do, and then take that experience to get that degree with that bigger university name on it at the end of it to try to mitigate some of those costs.
Well, first of all, I think you need to make the right choice about what kind of school you're going to go to and make sure that whatever it's going to cost is going to be worth it in the long run. And I think that yourself is the most worthwhile investment you can make. So if it has to be student loans, that's fair. That being said, you should work as hard as you can to find every bit of money that will be given to you to support your education. And you should work students and parents to pay for that education ahead of time, save as best they can. If you can't make that savings, I would say take the loans and make the right investment if you can find it.
As far as applying for college scholarships, there's merit awards from the colleges, but there's lots of scholarships out there for students to apply for. The county scholarships, you have the Lilly Scholarship, you have students receiving lots of financial aid or scholarship money from their parents' place of employment or their churches, the Masonic Lodge, the Elks, lots of things that the parents and the students are involved in. It's important that you apply for those. Once again, keep a calendar so you know when the deadlines are.
Get as many things that you have done in high school down on paper, because a lot of those scholarships have 4 or 5 spots, so you really need to make sure that you rank them in order of what you want on there to present the best side of you, because if you're debating, you want to present yourself in the best way possible, so you definitely want to, if you've done any leadership positions, put those down. If you've done any volunteering, put those down. That's what they really look for, but really just try and give them a complete view of who you are. Don't try and trick them or anything, just show them who you are, because they can tell if you're being phony, if you're being true.
Make sure that your essays that you've read them and you feel the passion in those essays that you write. That can make the difference of you receiving that scholarship or someone else.
I think too, we think about filing the FAFSA. This is another thing that's very scary for families, and this is the free application for federal student aid. A lot of times we think, I'm not going to qualify for anything, but you actually would be surprised at what you qualified for. This is also oftentimes a measure of interest for colleges, so if you file the FAFSA and send it to them, that's going to give them a message that you really are interested in their institution. And sometimes we in those institutions are going to take advantage of knowing that you're filing and you're showing your interest in us. So apply for any and everything that you can, and I would say to contact anyone that you can that's going to be a resource for you to see what other scholarships might be out there that you don't know of, whether that be teachers, counselors, admission counselors, mentors. There are a lot of opportunities out there that we're just not always aware of.
The largest adjustment going into college that I made was probably learning to work with a group of people that were more aligned with my thinking, right? I mean, we were all obviously computer science students at that point. You know, at South Putt, there were just a handful of us. There were 2 or 3 people that were interested in that field. When I get to Rose-Hulman, there's a whole class of us, right? I mean, we're all, in that major, and it just having like-minded individuals around from a career goal perspective and a school perspective was a good adjustment. I mean, that wasn't something that was hard to adjust to.
It was just altering. It sort of, I had seen the world when I was young as there's so many limitations. Like we don't have more time for things, we don't have money for things, we don't have access to resources. And when I got to college, I was with people in an environment where they were looking for ways to remove boundaries, and looking for new exciting things to do instead of thinking about the reasons they couldn't do things. And so, in a way, my entire life focus, the lens that I saw things through really shifted, and for the better.
I think the biggest adjustment I had to make in college was understanding that it was okay to go after what I wanted. I think I spent a lot of my time in my life trying to please everyone else, and I think that's why I stayed with the path I was on for so long, is that I thought, this is what I was told I have to do, this is what everyone says I should do, this is what I would be good at. But very quickly I learned, this is my life and this is my experience, and if I would do it again, I wouldn't have changed anything because I learned that lesson throughout the whole process. But I think a lot of students do go through a lot of their college experience trying to live up to their parents' expectations or their community's expectations. And so I think I learned that this is for me and this is something that I have to live with, and as long as I'm happy, that's all that really matters.
A piece of wisdom that I've learned after graduating college, I touched on it earlier a little bit maybe, is that the further I get into my career, the more I realize how important it is to do something that's important to you, do something that you feel passionate about. We only get so much time, and work is a big piece of it. You don't want to add that up and see how much time you're at work versus how much time you're at home. So when you do that, you see that a lot of that time is spent at work, and doing something that you love and doing something that's important to you is probably one of the most important things.
It's okay not to have a plan. That was a big shocker for me. I was very much this is my 1-year plan, my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan. And I learned very quickly that life, there's a lot of different opportunities at you. And it's okay to take advantage of those even if they weren't on your plan.
College is to be open-minded, to try new things, be a part of a group or an activity you never thought you would have before, and see where it takes you. I had the opportunity to do that at DePaul. I took different classes than I thought I was going to. I joined different groups, different activities, things I had never planned on. When I first started, I knew in my mind exactly what classes I was going to take, what activities I was going to do, what my major was going to be, and what job I was going to have. I knew all all that as a grade 1 freshman. But I tried different things, took new classes, and I ended up changing my major, changing my career path, and I'm so thankful for that.
So how can parents help their students looking at colleges and scholarships? Take them on visits, talk to them about what do they want to do after they graduate from high school. Keep all of the options, all doors open. Don't worry about the cost of going to college, because there's lots of financial aid available. I've had students who get more financial aid going to a private school that costs maybe $50,000 than they could go to a state school such as an IU or Purdue. Looking at where you work, there's lots of scholarships where parents are employed.
And I think that's one of the things is to be a part of the process for their student. You know, ask questions for them. Start being in the process of what they need to do. Being on top of their student and their son or daughter of, hey, what are you in this process? Have you taken the SAT? Have you signed up? Have you gone to the counselor? Have you talked to them? Don't be afraid to call a counselor and ask a question if you're not sure if your son or daughter has done that. And we'll give you the information you need a lot of times. I think middle school students, that one is to educate their kids as much as possible. Talk to their kids about college, about careers, about different aspects of that, and then also be talking to them about academics and how important those academics are in their goals. You know, when they're in middle school, it doesn't count. Grades don't count, and letting them understand that if they have a few failures along the way, that doesn't mean the end of the world. Let's start figuring out what gets them to that point and start helping them gain a better understanding of what it's going to mean when it gets to that. But really be part of that process. If they're in that process, take them to college. Let them get that opportunity in front of them to see things, so that when they do come into the high school world, it's not completely new to them. It's normalcy for them to be thinking about those aspects of college and careers.
But also for our middle school students in the state of Indiana, if they are eligible for the 21st Century Scholars Program, they need to apply. Great program. It depends upon need. They have to apply their 6th, 7th, or 8th grade by June 30th of their 8th grade year. And the opportunities for financial assistance are tremendous.
Okay, so the 529 plan is a tax advantage savings plan, and anyone who is a U.S. citizen who is over the age of 18 can open it, but anyone who has a social security number can be the beneficiary of it. So this allows parents, grandparents, friends, families, anyone to donate to this account to help the youth save for their education. The Purdue Extension Office of Putnam County has put on a program called the Putnam 4-H Education Pledge, which is incorporating the 529 plan. And the office is now offering an award to 3rd graders. So if you're interested in this award, 3rd graders, you need to go talk to the Extension Office.
I would just say a big thank you. I mean, it's just such a blessing that people are so willing to give and help young college students out. It's a huge financial burden. Just to have that lifted is so nice and refreshing. It gives us abilities to pursue things that we wouldn't have, or some freedoms in college. Like now I don't have to try to pursue a job. I can do some freedom. I can explore a club or something. I can take a leadership role on that I wouldn't have been able to in other ways. So it's just a huge thank you.